5 years into our marriage, everyone s'd I'd married the perfect husband. Noah was gentle, attentive, and endlessly patient, the kind of man romance novels are built around. He pampered me until I hardly had to think about the practical details of life. But the one person he couldn't stand was my best friend, Kayla. Once, Kayla came over for dinner and ordered 2 extra dishes. Do you have to be so picky about dinner? Isn't Leah doing enough already? His expression frosty. He took the apron from my hands, then served the roasted cod and creamy butternut squash Kayla loved. When Kayla got caught in a downpour on her way home from a business trip, she asked me to pick her up at the airport. Can't she call a cab from the airport? Why does she have to make you drive all that way? Scowling, he snatched the keys from me, pulled on his coat, and went to get her himself. There were too many moments like that. I told myself he cared too much about me to let my best friend take advantage of me. That was what I believed until the day Kayla and I were installing a wall sconce in the new apartment, and I fell from the chair. Noah, who'd just gotten home, rushed straight to Kayla. His voice trembled. How could you be so careless? Where else does it hurt? Don't move, I'll take you to the hospital. I lifted my right arm, mangled and bloody where the broken glass had cut it. But he'd already scooped Kayla up and rushed into the elevator. I stared around our newly furnished Bayside apartment. The space beside the fireplace was still bare, the dining room chandelier not yet installed. There was no point finishing it now. Pain throbbed through my right arm, all the way to the bone. Blood trailed from my fingertips and spattered the wood floor with dark spots. I wrapped my arm in a towel and took a cab alone to the nearest urgent care clinic. The urgent care physician drew a sharp breath when he unwrapped the towel. The glass is embedded deep. I'll need to clean the wound and stitch it up. Are you here alone? I nodded. The doctor looked at my right arm, then toward the door. You really should have someone with you. Once the local anesthetic kicks in, you'll have trouble holding things, and you still need to confirm your insurance information at the front desk. I accepted the form with my left hand and managed to smile. It's fine. I can manage on my own. The moment my right arm moved, the wound felt like it tore open again. With only my left hand, I fumbled to sign the forms, fish out my ID, and swipe my card. The man in line behind me tapped the counter impatiently. How much longer is this going to take? Does nobody else need to see a doctor? I kept apologizing, my forehead damp with cold sweat. The physician removed more than a dozen tiny glass shards from my arm. The deepest cut needed 6 stitches. Night had fallen by the time I left urgent care. No text from Noah. Not one missed call. When I got home, the living room had been cleaned spotless. Kayla was there too. With a small gauze patch on her right palm and another on her left leg, she lounged on the couch and winked at me. Where'd you go? I thought you were resting in the bedroom. Noah came out of the kitchen carrying a soup pot. Hungry? Taking Kayla to the hospital held me up. I made the clam chowder you've been craving. Both of her cuts needed 3 stitches. When I saw all that blood in the living room, it scared me half to death. But my worst cut took 6 stitches. I nodded and turned to ask Kayla, does it still hurt? Kayla shook her head with a grin. If I can still mooch a meal at your place, it can't be that bad. Noah carried out the food and gave his usual cold scoff when he heard her. 4 dishes and a pot of chowder soon covered the table. Kayla and I both loved clam chowder. I had asked for it several times lately, but he always said scrubbing the clams was too much trouble and promised to make it when he had time that weekend. Looking back, Kayla had been there every time he made it. It wasn't until we were eating that they noticed the gauze on my arm. Noah looked at me guiltily. I'm sorry, Leah. When I came in, Kayla was lying on the far side. I thought she was the only one badly hurt. The truth was I had fallen first. Kayla had only gone down when I pulled her with me. But I was never the first person Noah saw. It's fine. I lowered my head and sipped the soup. At least I finally got the chowder I'd been dreaming about. Noah's jaw stilled for a beat before he looked away. Then have some more. After dinner, Kayla suddenly smacked her forehead. Oh no, I've got a client review tomorrow morning and I haven't finished revising my product demo deck. She nudged me with her elbow. Her voice, so casually intimate it sounded almost like a pout. Leah, sweetie, I hurt my hand. I'll dictate. You make the edits. Please. Noah frowned, wearing the familiar irritation he always seemed to reserve for Kayla. She's hurt worse than you are. Why should she stay up all night for you? Come on, I got hurt helping with your wall sconce. Kayla sounded utterly entitled. If I can't claim workers' comp, I can at least claim friendship benefits, can I? Noah jerked his chin toward the study with an exasperated look. Kayla instantly flashed a victory sign. With 2 product experts in my corner, tomorrow's in the bag. At the study door, she turned back and called out to Noah. Grab my laptop bag while you're at it. A few lines of banter between them, and the decision was made. Standing by the dining table, I suddenly felt like a guest who'd wandered into someone else's life by mistake. I turned and went back to the bedroom. Voices drifted in from the living room now and then. Without quite knowing why, I opened the home security app. On the screen, Noah filled 2 snack bowls with nuts, sliced a plate of fruit, and carried everything into the study. Then he took Kayla's favorite lemon and honey black tea from the top shelf and dropped in 2 slices of dried orange. Only then did he pour himself a cup of black coffee. An old movie love song drifted in from the next room. Noah headed for the study with the tea, light-footed, and humming under his breath. I hadn't seen that spring in his step in a long time. They stayed in the study for over 3 hours before coming out. I heard movement at the door and got up to look. Kayla was putting on her shoes. Noah held her laptop bag in his left hand and her handbag in his right, her coat draped over his arm. When he saw me, he explained as if it were obvious. Kayla can't drive with that hand. I'll take her home in her car. Get some sleep. You must be exhausted. I'll be back soon. From our apartment to Kayla's lakeside neighborhood and back was about 40 minutes. But Noah left at 11 and didn't get home until 2 in the morning. For those 3 hours, my mind ran through scene after scene like a movie reel. Kayla was always getting a sudden urge to visit some shop, some stretch of beach, or some waterfront food truck row. Did Noah frown as usual, pretend he didn't want to go, and drive her there anyway? Sure enough, he came home complaining. She insisted I take her to Old Harbor for grilled wraps. When I refused, she threatened to call you and complain. He sat on the edge of the bed, touched my hand, and frowned in surprise. Why are you freezing? He got up, turned the heat up, and tucked the blanket in around me. I buried my face in the pillow and pretended to be asleep. I turned the heat down on purpose. I didn't want him to know my hands and feet had been cold all night. Noah washed up for bed and lay down soon after. Before long, his breathing was even. His phone lit up. When you pick me up tomorrow morning, grab a cinnamon roll from Harbor Street Bakery, plus a cheese bagel and hot cocoa from the place across the street. When you come get me tomorrow morning, grab a cinnamon roll from the Harbor Street Bakery on the way, plus a cheese bagel and a hot cocoa from the place across the street. I lay back down. The group chat the 3 of us shared had been dead for a long time. Whenever I sent something, they responded with a couple of throwaway emojis. So this was where all the conversation had gone. Private messages. I lay awake almost until dawn. I had barely drifted into a proper sleep when Noah woke me. The bedside clock read 6, an hour and a half earlier than usual. We need to leave early. We'll pick up Kayla first, then drop her at the office. I sat up and looked at him. Have her take a cab. I'll pay for it. Do you really want to drive that far first thing in the morning? Noah's fingers stilled on his cufflink. Then his usual look of distaste returned. You really think your best friend will settle for a cab? It's fine, just for these few days. Otherwise she'll complain to you again about how heartless I am. I kept my eyes down and said nothing. After a long pause, I said, go get her then. I'll sleep a little longer and head to the office on my own. The sound of water in the bathroom stopped for a moment. Then he said, okay. I might have said I wanted more sleep, but once he left, I couldn't drift off again. I boiled myself an egg for breakfast. I thought about the cinnamon roll Kayla wanted from Harbor Street Bakery, plus the bagel and hot cocoa from across the street. It sounded close, but driving meant looping around one-way streets, while walking meant crossing 2 cold, rain-slicked blocks. When I wasn't there to see it, did Noah still scowl and act put out? Those thoughts followed me all the way to the office. I had barely sat down when an email confirming my promotion appeared in my inbox. The promotion I had spent 3 years fighting for was finally mine. My coworkers crowded around my desk, cheering and insisting we celebrate that night. I agreed, laughing louder than I meant to. Dinner's on me tonight. We're going all out. Someone teased me. I'm so jealous. Your career is taking off, and you have the perfect husband on top of it. Noah and I worked for the same tech company, but in different divisions. By the time I joined, he had already launched a product that swept the industry. Everyone at the company considered him its young star. When he was pursuing me, it wasn't just his talent that won me over. There was also his empathy, his respect, and his quiet, grounded tenderness. He understood why marriage and motherhood gave me pause. He respected how fiercely I wanted to advance my career. He quietly handled the tedious, time-consuming things for me without ever seeking praise. Noah proposed 3 times before I said yes. That day, I told him, my father abandoned my mother and me. I don't believe in marriage. Don't make me regret this. His eyes held absolute certainty. He said, I never will. My coworker was still marveling. And it isn't just your love life. Your friendship is straight out of a movie. You and Kayla have had each other's backs since high school, and after graduation, you stayed in the same city and joined the same industry. Kayla and I both came from single-parent homes. My mother was bedridden for years. Her father was an alcoholic. In high school, when the other kids shunned us, we clung to each other as if together we could shut out every judgmental stare. When my mother became gravely ill, Kayla pressed $600 in crumpled rent money from her part-time job into my hands. When her father got violent after drinking, I threw myself between them without a second thought. The scar is still on my arm. We promised we would get out together. When our college acceptances arrived, we sobbed in each other's arms. Your life is basically friends, my coworker said with a laugh. No money troubles and love and friendship are always right there.
I left harder.
I laughed until my eyes burned and my shoulders shook. My coworkers exchanged glances. I'm just so happy, I said quickly. Then invite your perfect husband and your ride-or-die best friend. I nodded and sent a message in our group chat of 3. I got the promotion. Dinner's on me tonight. My coworkers want to meet my perfect husband and my legendary best friend. I sent the message at 10 in the morning. For a long time, no one replied. At 4 in the afternoon, Noah finally messaged. Congratulations, Leah. 3 years of hard work finally paid off. You're incredible. I sent him the address for the dinner. The typing bubble lingered on his end for a long time. I tapped my mouse absently, closed my eyes, and prayed. When I opened them again, I saw his message. Kayla says the client loved her proposal, but they want a deeper breakdown of the user data. I'll help her break down the data and try to finish early. Then we'll come meet you together. If I don't, she'll bother you all night and ruin your evening. When my first product launched, Noah had promised to celebrate with me. That same day, Kayla's dog developed a sudden kidney infection. She called me sobbing so hard, she could barely breathe. I asked Noah to take me to Kayla first. He had genuinely resented it then. The irritation was plain in his eyes. It's our date. Can't we go after we celebrate? Somewhere along the way, the two of them had become we. Somewhere along the way, I had become the person they saw only after they were finished. The dinner started at 7. 7:30.
8. 9.
I chewed slowly and steadily, forcing down one bite after another. It was as if the evening couldn't end as long as I kept eating. Eventually, my coworkers stopped asking whether they were coming. At 10:30, I made sure everyone got home safely and took a cab back to the apartment alone. The place was dead quiet. As I changed my shoes, my knees gave out. I caught myself on the entryway cabinet and slowly sank to the floor. I texted the lawyer I'd exchanged numbers with earlier that day. Please draft a divorce settlement agreement for me. After I sent it, something inside me finally loosened. I walked into the master bedroom, locked the door, and turned off my phone. I just wanted to sleep, undisturbed by anyone. The next day, a knock at the door woke me. Did you have a good time last night? I slumped against the headboard and said nothing. Noah brought in 2 fried eggs, a slice of buttered toast, and a glass of warm milk. I'm sorry. We were up too late sorting the data last night. Kayla and I talked. We'll throw you another celebration dinner this weekend. Kayla and I talked it over. I set down my fork and hid my trembling hand under the table. I looked up at him. Noah, my coworkers, all envy me. They say my life is basically friends. No money worries, perfect love, and a once-in-a-lifetime friendship. The tears fell anyway. The tears spilled anyway. Noah crouched beside me and took my hand. Of course. Anyone who tries to take that happiness from you will answer to me. I took the morning off so I could go with you to have the dressing changed. I nodded and finished breakfast in silence. After the meal, Noah drove me to the hospital. The nurse turned to get antiseptic and cotton swabs, then asked casually, "Where's the wound?" Head bent over his phone, Noah answered without thinking. Right palm, outer left thigh, and a little scrape on the left arm. The nurse gave my outstretched right arm a puzzled look. Thick gauze ran from my wrist almost to my elbow. I dropped my gaze and shook my head. On the weekend, Kayla came over for dinner. After the meal, Noah went to do the dishes. Kayla's office called. An important client had changed the scope at the last minute, and she had to return for an immediate meeting. Noah came out of the kitchen with his wet hands held in front of him. "I'll drive you." He swiped his hands across the apron, untied it, and tossed it onto the couch. He normally couldn't stand anything from the kitchen being carried into the living room. After they left, I went to the kitchen to finish the dishes he'd left half done. As I scrubbed a pan, I realized it wasn't the one we used to own. Whenever Kayla came for dinner, she had complained that the old pan heated unevenly and left the fish tasting scorched. After that, she never complained again. I picked up my phone and searched for the same model. It was a pure titanium nonstick pan imported from Germany, priced at nearly $3,000. The pan it replaced was one Noah had complained was too heavy and hard on his wrist whenever he tossed food in it. I had compared dozens of options and contacted one retailer after another about the weight before choosing it. When I finished the dishes, I opened the guest room where Kayla sometimes stayed. There was a new floor lamp by the bed. The guest room in the old apartment hadn't had a bedside lamp. Back then, Noah had said, "She's only a guest for a few nights. There's no reason to spend that much." Kayla had complained that she liked to read in bed, but didn't even have a decent lamp. I pulled up the product listing. Smart dimming, premium eye-friendly lighting, nearly $1,500. The curtains caught my eye next. The heavy blackout fabric belonged in a luxury hotel suite. Kayla used to complain that too much morning light entered the old apartment and ruined her sleep. I took a deep breath and looked around the room. Kayla had said the air conditioner was too loud. Now an ultra-quiet HVAC system serviced the guest room. The bed was made with the pale floral sheets she'd admired when she dragged me through a home goods store. I stumbled out of the guest room. I knocked against the vase on the living room cabinet. It was the one Kayla had given us when we moved in. She'd smiled and said, hydrangeas would look gorgeous in this vase. 3 blue and purple hydrangeas now stood in the vase. They were serene and lush, as lovely as a watercolor. Noah had brought them home from work 2 days ago. I gasped, covered my mouth with both hands, and stumbled backward. I couldn't bear to look at anything else in that home. I fled. At 5 that afternoon, Noah called to say Kayla was taking us out to dinner. I said I was busy at a coworker's place and couldn't make it. He said he'd pick me up after dinner. In the past, if I wasn't free, they'd wait until I was before getting together. I had been too slow to see it, too sure of my place in their lives. At 8:30 that evening, Noah came to get me. I picked up the divorce agreement off the table, put it in my bag, and went down to meet him. He seemed out of sorts. "What's wrong? Did you and Kayla have another spat?" The question gave Noah's irritation somewhere to go. The whole way, he griped nonstop. Apparently, he and Kayla had started debating a product requirement over dinner. The data, he argued, proved that the feature addressed a real user need. Kayla insisted metrics couldn't capture how users actually felt, and the argument went on and on. His whole face lit up as he spoke. He looked like the brilliant, ambitious product designer I had fallen for. I remembered last summer, when Noah and I had disagreed over which of 2 features should take priority on the screen. He had disagreed with me and looked ready to debate it. Then he had merely smiled and patted my head. "You're right." He had never agreed with me. He simply hadn't cared enough to understand the reasoning behind my position. He hadn't cared enough to explain his own reasoning, either. He had disguised indifference as compromise. The signs had always been there. I gripped the divorce agreement in my bag. Our marriage had held thousands of genuinely happy moments. Could I really let all of it end? A last ember of hope still glowed in my chest, refusing to die. "Noah," I said softly, "you used to hate having Kayla so involved in our lives. You two are always fighting anyway. Maybe we should put some distance between us and her." Noah froze. His grip loosened on the wheel. One hand went to his hair. The other brushed his forehead. The car drifted slightly. "Noah," I screamed. He snapped back to attention and seized the wheel again. He opened his mouth as if to say something. I cut him off. His silence had answered everything. I pulled out my phone and requested an extended leave from my manager. The next day, once Noah had left to pick up Kayla, I pulled out my suitcase and packed. When I finished, I left the signed divorce settlement agreement on the dining table. I placed my wedding ring beside it. The suitcase wheels made a low, rhythmic hum against the hallway tiles.
It was A.
Sound I had heard 100 times on business trips, but today it sounded like A. Heavy gates swinging shut behind me. I did not take everything. I took 3 sweaters, 2 pairs of jeans, my work, laptop, my legal documents, and the silver watch my mother had given me for my 21st birthday. I left the designer coats Noah had bought me, the delicate gold necklaces he had surprised me with on anniversaries, and the matching silk pajamas we had bought when we signed the lease on this place. On the dining table, the divorce agreement lay flat under the dim morning light. Beside it, my platinum wedding band sat centered on the crisp white paper. A tiny, metallic ring holding down 3 years of quiet betrayal. I didn't look back when the elevator door slid shut. I took a cab to a small, furnished studio apartment 6 towns over, right along the rugged northern coast where the ocean was gray and loud. I had booked it late the night before using a secondary card Noah didn't track. It was small one room with a narrow iron bed, a worn pine table, and a window that rattled whenever the wind picked up off the water. It was perfect. It was quiet. Most importantly, it was entirely mine. I powered down my primary cell phone, swapped in a fresh SIM card, and emailed my boss from my personal account, attaching my formal request for a 4-week sabbatical. Within 20 minutes, she replied, "Take all the time you need.
Leah.
Your promotion is safe. Rest up." I closed the screen, sat on the edge of the narrow mattress, and let the quiet wash over me. For 5 years, my life had been filled with noise: Noah's gentle scolding, Kayla's bright, piercing laughter, the gentle overlap of their voices in our
Kitchen.
I had mistaken that noise for warmth. I had mistaken Noah's effortless care taking for love. I reached out with my left hand and touched the white gauze wrapped around my right forearm. Beneath the cotton, the 6 stitches pulled tight against my.
It's again.
He hadn't even looked at my arm when the doctor asked where the injury was.
He
Had memorized every scratch on Kayla's skin, her palm, her thigh, her arm, like a map he knew by heart.
But mine?
Mine was invisible to him.
My phone rang.
The new SIM card number was known only to my lawyer, Mr. Vance. "Leah." Mr. Vance's voice was crisp and professional. "The papers were delivered to your residence by courier 2 hours ago to ensure official timestamping. Alongside your left note, your husband has attempted to call my office 7 times in the last hour." "Did he sign?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "He refused," Mr. Vance replied. "He told my assistant there was a misunderstanding." He sounded confused, then agitated. "He demanded your location." "Don't give it to him." "Of course not. But Leah, under local marital law, if he refuses to sign a mutual consent agreement, we will have to file for contested dissolution.
That
Means a mandatory 90-day mediation period before a court date can be set." "That's fine," I said, looking out at the gray waves crashing against the jagged rocks outside my window. "He can take 90 days. He can take 90 years.
I'm
Already gone." Back at the Bayside apartment, Noah arrived home at 1:30 p.m. He carried a brown paper bag from the bakery on Harbor Street, the cinnamon rolls Kayla had wanted, along with a hot coffee for himself and a brown sugar oat latte he always bought for Leah when he felt guilty about being late. He unlocked the front door with his elbow, stepping into the hallway. "Leah," he called out, setting the keys on the entryway cabinet. "I brought latte." Kayla's meeting ran long, but I told her we couldn't do lunch today because I promised to check on your stitches. Silence greeted him. The apartment smelled faintly of cold dust and ocean breeze.
the window in the
Dining room had been left slightly open. "Leah?" Noah walked into the kitchen, setting the coffee down on the quartz counter, the counter he had installed because Kayla once mentioned she hated dark granite. He walked toward the dining room. That was when he saw it. The white paper sat on the dark walnut table, perfectly straight. Next to it, the platinum ring caught a slant of pale sunlight. Noah stopped. A faint, nervous laugh escaped his throat. "What is this? A joke?" He stepped closer, picking up the top page. "Settlement agreement for dissolution of marriage." His eyes scanned down the page, skipping past the legalese until he hit the handwritten signature at the bottom in Leah's precise, neat slant. Next to her name was today's date. Beside the document lay a small, index card-sized piece of heavy stock paper.
It
Wasn't a long letter. There were only 3 sentences written on it. "The fireplace is still bare. The dining room chandelier was never installed. There is no point in finishing this house, Noah.
keep the pan. Keep the lamp.
Keep her." Noah's breath hitched. He dropped the paper as if it had burned his fingers. "Leah," he yelled, turning around and lunging toward the master bedroom. He threw the door open. The bed was made, neat and cold. He pulled open the closet doors. Her side was half empty. The empty hangers clinked together in the draft, a hollow, metallic sound that echoed in the quiet room. His heart pounded against his ribs, sudden and frantic. He snatched his phone from his pocket and dialed her number. "The mobile number you have dialed is currently switched off or outside the service area."
He dialed again.
Same recording. He dialed a third time, his fingers shaking so hard he nearly dropped the phone. Then he called her office. The front desk transferred him to her division. "Secretary. Hi, this is Noah. Put me through to Leah's desk, please." "Oh, Mr. Miller. Leah isn't here. She took an extended leave starting today. Didn't she tell you?" Noah felt the air leave his lungs all at once. Extended leave? For how long? A month, at least. "She put in a request late last night." The phone slid an inch through his sweat-chilled palm. He hung up without saying another word. He stood in the middle of their quiet bedroom, looking at the neatly made bed, his mind spinning in chaotic circles.
Why?
Why now? Because of the promotion. Dinner? Because I missed it? It was just work data, he thought desperately. Kayla needed help with her proposal. Leah knew how important that account was to Kayla. Leah is always reasonable. She's always patient. She understands these things. His phone vibrated in his hand. Kayla's name flashed across the screen. Noah answered instantly. Leah? Noah? It's me. Kayla's voice came through, bright and slightly breathless. Hey, did you leave my laptop charger in your car? I can't find it in my bag, and my battery is at 10%. Noah stood frozen beside the open closet, looking at the empty hangers. Noah, are you there? She left, Noah whispered, his voice dry and raspy.
What?
Who left? Leah, Noah said, his voice rising, sharp and jagged. She left. She packed her clothes, she took a leave from work, and she left divorce papers on the table. There was a pause on the other end of the line. A beat of complete silence. When Kayla spoke again, the light, airy tone was gone, replaced by a strange, careful stillness. Divorce papers? Are you serious? Over what? I don't know. Noah yelled into the phone, slamming his hand against the doorframe. I don't know. She left a note, something about the house and the pan, and he stopped, the words catching in his throat. Noah, calm down, Kayla said quickly, her voice softening into a gentle, soothing murmur. You know how Leah gets when she's stressed.
She just got that
big promotion. She's probably overwhelmed and having a silly emotional breakdown. She'll be back in a day or two once she cools off. She left her ring, Kayla, Noah said, staring at his own palm, which was cold and trembling. She left her ring. She's just trying to scare you, Kayla insisted. Look, come over to my place. We'll order some takeout, go over everything, and figure out how to handle this. You shouldn't be alone right now. For 5 years, whenever Kayla offered a solution, Noah had followed it without thinking. It had felt natural. It had felt easy. But today, looking at the empty hangers in Leah's closet, a strange, sickening knot tightened in the pit of his stomach. No, Noah said softly.
What?
No, Kayla. I'm not coming over. He hung up the phone before she could reply. The first week of Leah's absence was a study in slow, agonizing realization for
Noah.
At first, he convinced himself it was temporary. Women got emotional. Leah was under high pressure at work. She was upset about her arm. He would wait 3 days, let her anger simmer down, and then go pick her up wherever she was
staying.
He called her lawyer, Mr. Vance, every morning at 9 o'clock. Mr. Vance, I am her husband. I have a right to know where my wife is. Mr. Miller. Vance's voice was an impenetrable wall of legal indifference.
My
client has explicitly instructed me not to share her residence with you. If you wish to expedite this process, I suggest you review the settlement terms.
She is
not asking for spousal support, nor is she contesting your division assets.
She
is letting you keep the Bayside apartment entirely. I don't want the damn apartment. Noah roared into the receiver. I want my wife. Then I suggest you hire legal representation, Mr. Miller.
Good day.
Noah slammed the receiver down. He walked through the apartment that evening, unable to sit still. Without Leah, the home had lost its subtle, unwritten order. He had never realized how much she did because she did it silently. He couldn't find his extra gym keys. He couldn't remember the password for the utility bills portal. The refrigerator, usually stocked with fresh fruit, marinating meats, and the iced sparkling water he liked, was empty except for 3 wilted lemons and a half-empty carton of almond milk. He stood in front of the open fridge, the cold air washing over his face, feeling a strange, hollow panic beginning to take root in his chest. The door buzzer rang. Noah rushed to the intercom, his heart leaping. Leah? It's me. Kayla's voice came through the speaker. Noah's shoulders dropped. He hesitated for 3 seconds before pushing the release button. Kayla walked in carrying 2 large bags of groceries. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater that Leah had given her for her birthday 2 years ago. You look awful, Kayla said, giving him an affectionate, sympathetic smile as she kicked off her shoes. I knew you weren't eating right. I bought stuff to make that braised pork dish you like. She walked into the kitchen with the familiarity of someone entering her own living room. She set the bags down, opened the cabinets, and began pulling out pots. She reached for the pure titanium nonstick pan, The $3,000 pan Noah had bought. After she complained about the old one. Where's the olive oil? Kayla asked, opening a cabinet. Did Leah take it? Noah stood at the kitchen island, watching her. For the first time in 5 years, he wasn't looking at Kayla through the lens of Leah's presence. He was just looking at her. He noticed the way she moved, hurried, loud, expecting things to be where she
Wanted them.
He noticed how she didn't wipe the counter before setting down the damp vegetables. Leah always wiped the counter first. Leah was quiet, precise, and graceful. Why did you complain about the old pan? Noah asked suddenly. Kayla paused, a bottle of soy sauce in her hand. She turned around, looking at him with a puzzled laugh. What? The old frying pan, Noah said, his voice flat. Last year, you said it made the fish taste scorched. Kayla rolled her eyes playfully. Oh, that piece of junk? It was heavy and terrible. Why are you bringing that up now? Leah spent 3 weeks researching pans before she bought that one, Noah said, his mind drifting back to a memory he had long suppressed. She picked it because it was lightweight. She said my wrists hurt after long coding sessions, and she didn't want me straining myself when I cooked. Kayla threw her head back and laughed, a shrill sound that sliced through the quiet apartment. Noah, come on. It was just a pan.
Don't tell me you're getting
sentimental over cookware. Leah left you over a temper tantrum. You don't need to feel guilty. A temper tantrum? Noah stepped closer to the island, his face pale. She cut her arm to the bone, Kayla. 6 stitches. So did I. Kayla snapped, her smile instantly vanishing, replaced by a defensive scowl. I got stitches too. I was hurt just as badly. You had 2 minor scratches. Noah shouted, the truth suddenly ripping out of his throat before he could stop it. I went to the hospital with you. I stood right there while the doctor put 3 tiny stitches in your hand. But when the nurse asked me about Leah's injuries a week later, I didn't even know where her wound was. I told the nurse your injuries. Kayla stared at him, her eyes narrowing.
Noah, you were worried about me.
That's not a crime. She was fine. She took a cab by herself, didn't she?
She's
always been like that, tough, independent, cold. She doesn't need you the way I
do.
She doesn't need you. The words echoed in Noah's ears like a physical blow. He looked at Kayla, at the way she stood there, entitled, expectant, holding the expensive pan in his kitchen, waiting for him to comfort her, to side with her, to dismiss his wife's pain just as he had done 100 times before. A sudden wave of deep, suffocating revulsion washed over him, not just toward her, toward himself. Get out, Noah said softly. Kayla froze. What? Get out of my house, Kayla. Noah, don't be ridiculous. I came here to cook for you. I said get out. Noah slammed his fist onto the quartz counter with such force that the dishes in the sink rattled. Kayla flinched, stepping back. Her face flushed red with anger and disbelief. You're taking this out on me? After everything I've done for you? After all the hours we spent together working on your projects, listening to you complain about her workaholic schedule? Out. Noah repeated, his eyes dark, hollow, and dead. Kayla grabbed her handbag off the chair, her breath coming in angry gasps.
Fine.
Call me when you get over yourself, Noah. Let's see how long you last. Alone in this big, empty apartment. She slammed the door behind her. The apartment fell dead silent again. Noah sank onto the kitchen floor, right where Leah had dropped to her knees the night she came home to an empty house after her promotion dinner. He looked up at the ceiling. The dining room light fixture was missing, just a bundle of capped copper wires hanging from a cold plaster hole. He remembered the day they bought the apartment. Leah had stood right here, her eyes bright with joy, pointing up at the ceiling. We'll put a warm glass chandelier right here, she had said, leaning her head against his shoulder. So, every time we sit down to dinner it feels like home. He had promised to install it that weekend. Then Kayla had called about her apartment air conditioner. Then Kayla had needed a ride to the mechanic. Then Kayla had wanted help moving her sofa. And Noah had left the wires bare. For 3 years, he had left his wife standing in the dark. 2 weeks later, the small coastal town of Northern Cove was buried in a dense morning fog. I sat in a glass-fronted coffee shop overlooking the harbor, my laptop open in front of me. My arm was healing nicely. The doctor in town had removed the stitches 2 days ago, leaving a thin, pink line across my forearm. I traced the scar with my left index finger. It didn't hurt anymore. For the past 14 days, I had worked 12-hour stretches, throwing myself into a new cross-border expansion project for my division. without the constant mental drain of managing Noah's moods, anticipating his hidden reluctance, or playing third wheel in my own marriage. My mind was terrifyingly clear. My boss had called me yesterday, ecstatic. Leah, the preliminary strategy deck you sent over is brilliant. The executive board wants you to lead the North American launch team in Chicago next month. Chicago, a new city, a fresh start. I had agreed instantly. My phone chimed on the small wooden table. It was an email notification from Mr.
Vance.
Leah, Mr. Miller's legal team has finally made contact. He has formally requested an face-to-face mediation session before signing the asset distribution agreement. He claims he will sign unconditionally immediately following the meeting, but insists on 30 minutes of your time. Under local procedure, we can decline and force a court date in 2 months, but that will delay your final decree. If you agree to the 30-minute mediation, we can have the final decree signed by the judge by the end of this week. Let me know your preference. I looked out the window. A fishing boat was slowly cutting through the thick gray fog, its bow tearing through the quiet water. I didn't fear Noah anymore. The grief had burned itself out during those long, cold nights in the Bayside apartment. What was left now was simply clarity. I typed a quick reply. Agree to the 30 minutes. Set it for tomorrow afternoon at your office.
Tell
him if he is 1 minute late, I leave and we go to court. The next afternoon, the conference room on the 14th floor of Mr. Vance's legal firm was bright and sterile. I sat at the far end of the long mahogany table, wearing a tailored navy blazer, my hair pulled back into a sleek, low bun. Mr. Vance sat to my left, a neat stack of documents waiting under his hand. At exactly 2 p.m., the door opened. Noah stepped into the room. If I hadn't known it was him, I might not have recognized him. The man who stepped through the door was a ghost of the polished, confident product star everyone at work admired. His dark hair was overgrown and unstyled. His suit jacket looked loose on his shoulders, as if he had lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Deep, dark shadows bruised the skin beneath his eyes, and his jaw was covered in an uneven stubble. When his eyes met mine, he stopped dead in his tracks. A terrible, desperate gasp escaped his throat. Leah, he breathed, taking a step forward. Mr. Miller, Mr. Vance said firmly, gesturing to the chair across from us. Please take a seat. Your 30 minutes begin now. Noah didn't look at Vance. His eyes were locked on me, searching my face with a frantic, terrifying intensity. He walked over and pulled out the heavy leather chair, his hands visibly shaking. Leah, please, Noah whispered, his voice cracking. Look at me. I am looking at you, Noah, I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. My chest
didn't throb.
I felt entirely, strangely calm. Noah reached across the table, his long fingers stretching toward my hand, but I calmly drew my arms back, resting them on my lap beneath the table edge. His hand hovered in the empty air for a second before dropping heavily onto the mahogany. Why didn't you talk to me? Noah choked out, his eyes reddening instantly.
Why?
Did you just leave? A note on the table?
A ring?
5 years, Leah. We were married for 5 years. How could you just discard me like I was nothing? I didn't discard you, Noah, I said smoothly.
You discarded me.
It just took me 3 years to realize it. That's not true. Noah slammed his hand on the table, though the anger lacked conviction. It was pure, raw desperation. I loved you. I've always loved you.
I
worked for us. Everything I built was for our future. Was it? I asked, tilting my head slightly. The pure titanium pan was for us? The $1,500 dimming floor lamp in the guest room was for us? The hotel grade blackout curtains for a girl who stayed over twice a month, were those for us? Noah flinched, as if I had struck him across the face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. You told me you hated her. I continued, my tone conversational, almost clinical. You scowled every time she ordered extra dishes. You groaned every time she asked for a ride. You complained about how demanding she was.
And I
believed you. I thought, Noah loves me so much that he resents anyone who takes my time away. I smiled, a small, sad smile that didn't reach my eyes. But then I looked at the home security app that night. I said, I watched you slice fruit for her. I watched you make her favorite lemon orange tea. I heard you humming an old love song while you carried it to her in the study. I hadn't heard you hum in 3 years, Noah. Noah's face drained of what little color it had left. He looked at me with wide, horrified eyes, realization dawning on him like a slow, crushing weight. You didn't hate her, Noah, I said softly. You loved the drama. You loved the subtle thrill of giving her what she wanted while pretending to hold it against her. You loved arguing with her about product metrics because her opinions mattered to you. They challenged you. I paused, looking directly into his sunken eyes. And, do you know why you always agreed with me? I asked. Noah shook his head slowly, tears spilling over his lower lashes and dripping down his stubbled cheeks. Leah, please, because you didn't care enough to argue, I answered for him. When I disagreed with you, you smiled, patted my head, and said, you're right. You weren't compromising, Noah. You were dismissing me. I wasn't your partner. I was just the quiet, reliable background music to your life while you played the hero in hers. No, Leah, you're wrong, Noah sobbed, dropping his head into his hands. His shoulders heaved violently as he wept into his palms, the sound ragged and raw in the quiet legal room. I was blind. I was an idiot. She meant nothing to me. I kicked her out. I told her never to come back to the apartment. I haven't spoken to her in 2 weeks. He looked up, his face wet and miserable, begging me with his eyes. I don't care about Kayla. I don't care about the pan or the lamp or anything. I'll sell the apartment. We can move to Chicago. We can move anywhere. Just come home, Leah. Please. I can't breathe in that house without you. I looked at this man, the man I had once believed was my entire world, the man I had trusted to heal the wounds of my childhood. I didn't feel hatred. I didn't feel vengeance. I just felt a profound, gentle pity. It's too late, Noah, I said. It's not too late, he cried out, reaching across the table again. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever you want. Noah, I said, my voice soft but firm as steel. Look at my arm. He stopped, his breath catching in his chest. I pulled up the sleeve of my navy blazer, revealing the thin, pink 6-inch scar running along my forearm. When I fell from that chair, I said quietly, I was bleeding. I was terrified. And you walked right past me to pick up a girl who had a scratch on her palm. You carried her into the elevator while I sat alone on our wood floor, bleeding. Onto the wood you helped select. Noah stared at the scar, his chest rising and falling in erratic, panicked gasps. You left me then, Noah, I said, gently pulling my sleeve back down. I'm just finishing what you started. Silence fell over the room. Heavy, absolute, and final. Noah sat frozen, his tear-stained face fixed on my covered arm. He looked like a man who had been struck by lightning, standing amidst the smoldering ruins of a life he had dismantled with his own hands. Mr. Vance pushed the document tray across the polished mahogany table. Mr. Miller, Vance said gently. The papers. Noah looked down at the dark blue pen resting atop the white pages. He didn't speak again. He knew, with absolute certainty, that there were no words left in any language that could undo what he had done. The quiet, fiercely resilient woman sitting across from him was no longer his wife. She was a stranger who had outgrown the prison he had built for her. With a hand that shook so violently the ink splattered once against the crisp paper, Noah signed his name on the final line. The final court decree arrived in my email 4 days later. I spent my final weekend in Northern Cove packing my single suitcase for Chicago. The weather was turning crisp and cool, autumn arriving with sharp gusts of wind that cleared the lingering fog from the coastline. On my last evening in the studio, my personal phone rang. It was an unknown number, but it was Noah. I answered. Hello. Leah. It was Kayla. Her voice wasn't bright, entitled, or playful anymore. It sounded thin, sharp, and bitter. Are you happy now? Kayla asked, opening without a greeting. You destroyed everything. Noah hasn't been to work in 3 weeks. They put him on administrative leave. He blocked my number. He sold the Bayside apartment at a 20% loss and moved into a dirty, extended-stay hotel downtown. I stood by the window, watching the sunset cast a pale orange glow across the gray ocean. I didn't destroy anything, Kayla, I said calmly. You two did that all by yourselves. He never touched me, Leah. Kayla screamed into the line, her emotional composure cracking entirely. Nothing ever happened between us. You blew up your marriage over nothing. Over a pan? Over a lamp? Over me asking for rides? I was your best friend. I gave you $600 when your mother was dying. And I took a scar for you when your father threw a beer bottle at your face. I reminded her quietly. We were even a long time ago, Kayla. Kayla choked back a angry, desperate sob. He doesn't even want me, Leah.
Do you?
Know how humiliating that is? After you left, I went to his hotel. I tried to help him. I told him we could be together, that we didn't have to hide anymore. And, do you know what he said to me? I stayed silent listening. He looked at me like I was garbage, Kayla whispered, her voice dripping with venom and self-pity. He told me that every time he looks at my face, he feels
Sick.
He said I was the poison that ruined his life. He was wrong about that, I said smoothly. Kayla paused, taken aback.
What?
You weren't the poison, Kayla, I said, looking at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. He was the one who drank it willingly. You were just the glass. Kayla went dead quiet on the other end of the line. Goodbye, Kayla, I said. Don't call this number again. I didn't wait for her reply. I ended the call, removed the SIM card from the phone, snapped it in half, and tossed it into the small metal trash can beside the pine table. 3 years later, the autumn air in Chicago was crisp, filled with the scent of fallen leaves and roasted coffee. I walked out of the high-rise office building on Michigan Avenue, buttoning my camel hair trench coat against the evening breeze. Behind me, the glass doors reflected the glowing warm lights of the corporate headquarters where my team had just successfully delivered the largest international launch in the company's history. My phone chimed in my pocket, a work notification. Leah, the executive board approved the VP appointment. Official announcement. Goes out tomorrow morning. Congratulations. I smiled, letting out a long, quiet breath that turned into a plume of white steam in the chilly air. I walked down the busy sidewalk toward the train station, enjoying the rhythmic tap of my heels against the concrete. I had built a life here, a real life. My apartment near the park was filled with light, warm yellow walls, a roaring brick fireplace that worked perfectly, and a heavy, handcrafted crystal chandelier over the dining table that I had installed myself with the help of a local electrician. I didn't have a perfect husband. I didn't have a ride-or-die best friend who demanded every ounce of my emotional labor under the guise of shared trauma. I had something far better: peace. I had genuine colleagues who respected my intellect, friends who brought their own light into my life without taking mine, and a deep, unshakable trust in my own strength. As I waited at the pedestrian crossing, my eyes caught a small bookshop window across the street. In the glass reflection, I saw my own face, calm, confident, unburdened. I reached down and lightly touched my right forearm through the sleeve of my coat. The scar was still there, a thin white line that would stay with me for the rest of my life. But it no longer represented the night I was abandoned. It represented the night I stopped bleeding for people who didn't even notice I was hurt. The light changed from red to green. I stepped off the curb and walked forward into the bright, beautiful evening, without looking back once.